The Zarnak fleet moved through the dark reaches of space like a shadow across the stars, their ships silent and nearly invisible to the sensors of the primitive world. They had set their eyes on Earth. The galaxy was full of war and conquest, and for the Zarnak it was just another day in their endless campaign to expand their empire. They had already wiped out countless species across the cosmos. But Earth was different. Its people were not yet known to the greater galaxy. They had no knowledge of humanity's potential, and that was the Zarnak's greatest mistake. Their scouts had been to Earth years ago, gathering data and confirming the reports that humans were still trapped in their petty squabbles. Primitive weapons and basic technologies were all they had developed by the time the fleet's warlords made their final decision. Earth would be an easy conquest, an unprotected world ripe for the picking. The invasion was swift and brutal. The first wave of Zarnak ships entered the solar system without warning, their cloaking systems rendering them nearly invisible to Earth's rudimentary sensors. They approached with the confidence of invaders who had never been defeated before. The fleet consisted of ships that dwarfed anything humanity could have imagined. Their hulls were made of materials that shimmered with strange alloys that bent light and absorbed energy. These were no ordinary warships. They were giants with weapons that could decimate entire continents with a single shot. The humans had nothing that could challenge such power, but it didn't matter. The Zarnak commanders didn't plan to give humanity a fighting chance. As the Zarnak fleet descended toward Earth, they sent a message to every nation on the planet, an ultimatum, a demand for surrender. The transmission was clear and direct. Earth's governments had no choice but to comply or face extinction. The message echoed through every corner of the globe. One by one, the leaders of Earth's nations listened in disbelief. They had never faced an enemy like this. Nothing in their arsenal was capable of fighting off such a force, and the idea of surrender seemed like their only option. But something in the air felt different. The human spirit was never one to simply roll over and die, even against impossible odds. Across the globe, confusion and fear turned to determination as the first alien ships appeared in the sky, their massive forms blotting out the sun. Panic spread in the streets, but there was something else as well. Beneath the panic was an undercurrent of something far stronger: defiance. The world had always been divided, but when it came down to survival, humanity found a way to unite. In hidden underground facilities all over the world, humanity's military was quietly preparing their last hope. Decades of research and development on a weapon they had kept secret from the rest of the galaxy, a weapon they had only tested in isolated conditions, weapons so powerful that the Zarnak would never have considered their existence, much less believe that a primitive species like humanity could possess them. The Railguns, electromagnetic weapons capable of firing slugs at incredible speeds, slamming into their targets with the force of a small moon hitting a planet. The Zarnak had no idea. As Earth's leaders began to realize that their only chance for survival lay in their untested weapons, the first alien ships broke through the clouds and began their descent. It was too late to stop them, but it was not too late to fight back. The skies above Earth burned with alien fire as the first salvo from the Zarnak fleet tore into the atmosphere. Their massive warships unleashed an array of energy blasts that obliterated military bases and key cities with surgical precision. But as the alien ships descended, their commanders remained unaware of the surprise awaiting them, hidden beneath Earth's surface in secret bunkers and forgotten silos. Humanity had been preparing for this moment for years, while the world's military forces scrambled to mount a defense. Those with the knowledge and the means had quietly worked in the shadows, building weapons of unimaginable power. In bunkers carved into mountains and buried deep beneath desert sands, Earth's engineers powered up the dormant railguns, long-range electromagnetic weapons capable of sending projectiles screaming through the air at hypersonic speeds, each one carrying the force of a small asteroid hitting the ground. For decades, the railguns had been relegated to test sites or kept under wraps, a mere curiosity in the eyes of most world leaders. But now, as the Zarnak wreaked havoc on Earth's cities, the hidden railguns came to life. On the surface, chaos reigned as people fled in every direction, unsure of what was happening, and even more uncertain about how to survive against an enemy they couldn't comprehend. But deep beneath the Earth's crust, The hum of colossal machines starting up signaled something far different. Resistance. The Zarnak had assumed their invasion would be a quick and efficient operation, a smooth campaign to break a world that had no chance of defending itself. They never expected humans to fight back, and certainly not with weapons that could pierce their nearly indestructible ships. The first shot was fired from a station in the deserts of Nevada, the rails glowing white-hot as the electromagnetic pulse flung a tungsten slug at near-light speed toward one of the Zarnak's advancing ships. The impact was instantaneous. An explosion of light and force erupted in space as the massive warship was struck in its vulnerable flank. The Zarnak command ship staggered as if hit by a force far greater than anything its creators had ever anticipated. The blast wasn't enough to destroy the ship entirely, but it was enough to send a shockwave through the alien fleet. The Zarnak ships halted in their tracks, stunned by the sudden strike. Earth's defense had just broken through the seeming invincibility of their technology. The first few shots, though small in comparison to the Zarnak's mighty weapons, had sent a clear message. Humanity had teeth. The aliens had underestimated the sheer will of Earth's people and the ingenuity they could bring to bear when survival was on the line. Zarnak commanders, normally composed in the face of battle, were thrown into disarray. The military prowess of the Zarnak Empire was unmatched in the galaxy, yet here they were, watching as a primitive species fired weapons capable of harming them. It made no sense. How could a world so young in comparison to the Zarnak's empire possess such a weapon? A second railgun shot tore into the heart of another Zarnak vessel, and this time the result was catastrophic. The ship detonated in a fiery explosion, its hull crumpling under the immense force of the strike. The Zarnak fleet began to panic, their arrogance giving way to fear, but they quickly recovered, retaliating with energy pulses aimed at Earth's defensive stations scattered across the planet's surface. The battle was just beginning, and the Zarnak were beginning to realize that they were facing more than just a primitive species. They were up against a force that refused to yield, one that would fight with everything it had to survive. But the humans, despite their unexpected advantage, knew this was just the first round of a much larger war, and the real test was still to come. Would the railguns be enough to stop the alien onslaught? Or would humanity have to adapt even further to face the overwhelming might of the Zarnak fleet? The Zarnak commanders were still reeling from the unexpected assault as their fleet regrouped in space, confused and furious. Their ships, vast and imposing, had never before encountered a foe capable of inflicting damage of this magnitude. Their sensors, designed to detect the faintest irregularities in space, had never picked up a signature like the one left by Earth's railguns. For the first time in centuries, the Zarnak were caught off guard. The vast majority of their fleet had only sustained superficial damage, but the shockwave of humanity's unexpected resistance rattled their confidence. Zarnak warlord Korgax, who had led countless campaigns against far more advanced civilizations, sat in his command chair aboard the flagship Tarnak, staring at the scorched hull of the ship that had once been an unthinkable target. How could this primitive world, so far behind technologically, pose such a threat? His thoughts raced as he consulted with his generals. Their ships were equipped with weapons that could wipe out entire continents in seconds. Yet these humans had struck with precision, their railguns tearing through their shields and armor like paper. "Is this some sort of fluke?" Korgax growled, his voice cold with disbelief. Did their primitive technology suddenly evolve overnight? "No, warlord," responded his chief strategist, Vectra, her multi-eyed face scanning the damage reports with grim precision. "It's not a fluke. These weapons, they are based on electromagnetic pulses, far more advanced than we originally anticipated. We have underestimated them." For a moment, Korgax said nothing, his mind spinning. The implications were massive. If humanity had the capacity to develop such weapons, what else had they hidden from view? What other advancements lay buried beneath the surface, waiting to be unleashed? In an attempt to regain control of the situation, Korgax issued orders for a counteroffensive. His fleet would initiate a full-scale orbital bombardment to cripple Earth's remaining infrastructure and force the humans into submission. But he knew this would be no easy task. As his ships powered up their energy weapons, he couldn't shake the thought that the railguns were not just an isolated fluke. They were a warning. Humanity, against all odds, had the potential to change the course of this war, and the Zarnak had no idea how deep that potential ran. On Earth, the news of the initial success spread like wildfire. Governments and military leaders who had once been paralyzed by fear now found themselves energized by the realization that humanity was not helpless. They were fighters. The global military was quick to mobilize, deploying railguns in cities and fortified positions all over the planet. Scientists and engineers worked round the clock to refine the weapons, making them faster, more powerful, more accurate. Meanwhile, Colonel Samantha Hale, a seasoned veteran of Earth's Special Forces, was given command of one of the most critical operations of the war. A Zarnak command ship, the *Aristai*, had just entered low orbit above New York City. If allowed to remain in place, it would decimate the city with an energy cannon so powerful that nothing would survive. Earth's forces could not afford to lose another major urban center. Hale's mission was to infiltrate the command ship, plant a virus in its systems to disable its weapons, and then return to ground. Hale knew this would be no easy task. The Zarnak were formidable, their ships equipped with defense systems capable of preventing any attack from the surface. But if there was one thing humanity excelled at, it was making the impossible possible. She had seen it before. An entire world pulling together against impossible odds. With the railguns weakening the Zarnak's outer defenses, Colonel Hale's team launched their assault on the *Aristai*. They would infiltrate the alien ship under the cover of darkness, bypass its external security systems, and wreak havoc on the enemy's command structure. It was a suicide mission, but humanity was no stranger to desperate battles. The Zarnak had made a mistake in underestimating Earth, and Colonel Hale intended to make them regret it. The countdown began. The war was far from over, but the Zarnak were starting to realize that Earth was not the helpless, underdeveloped planet they had believed. It was a sleeping giant, one that had just begun to wake up. The Zarnak's initial shock had barely worn off before they launched their counteroffensive, a massive wave of energy weapons meant to cripple Earth's ability to fight back. From their flagship, the *Tarnak*, Korgax watched as his fleet released volley after volley of destructive pulses toward Earth's cities. Lasers, plasma blasts, and energy torpedoes streaked through the upper atmosphere, streaking down toward the vulnerable cities below. It was meant to be the final blow. It was supposed to end the human resistance once and for all. But as the Zarnak unleashed their fury, something unexpected happened. The railguns didn't just fire, they adapted. The first shots from Earth's hidden defenses had caught them off guard. Now Earth's military was prepared, and the railguns that had been tested in secret for decades were now operating at full capacity. Hidden deep within the Earth's crust, beneath mountains, in bunkers and scattered facilities, railgun platforms powered up once more. The weapons that had only recently been fired in small bursts for testing were now dishing out mass destruction with relentless force. The first volley hit the Zarnak's warships with deadly accuracy. Ships that had been charging up their energy weapons were blasted to pieces before they could fire. The railgun slugs moved so fast that the Zarnak couldn't even react in time. They watched in disbelief as their most advanced ships exploded in space, torn apart by simple, devastating human ingenuity. The projectiles, powered by nothing more than raw electromagnetic force, struck targets with the precision of a guided missile and the power of a small asteroid impact. On Earth's surface, the defenders were far from finished. Colonel Samantha Hale's Special Forces team had successfully infiltrated the *Aristai*, the Zarnak command ship hovering above New York. As the team planted the virus that would disable the alien ship systems, they encountered heavier resistance than anticipated. The Zarnak, now aware of the human threat, had fortified their ships with combat drones, automated turrets, and heavily armed patrols. But Hale's team was relentless, moving with speed and precision. The virus, once planted, began its work, spreading through the ship's communication systems and weapon arrays. The *** faltered. Its once immense firepower was now a mere trickle of its former self. By the time the team extracted themselves and returned to the surface, the virus had spread across the fleet. Ships that had once been untouchable were now slowly disabled. And in the skies above Earth, the Zarnak's invincible command ship, the one that had been poised to annihilate New York, fell silent. Its energy weapons sputtered and died, its shields flickering in and out of existence. The humans had not just stopped the invasion. They were taking the fight back to the Zarnak. Earth's global military began coordinating with scientific teams and engineers, rapidly deploying the railguns to every corner of the world. New weapons were being designed on the fly. Modifications to the railguns, upgrades that would increase their speed, power, and range. The railguns were not just Earth's best hope. They were the spearhead of a technological revolution, and humanity was beginning to understand the scope of its power. With the Zarnak on the back foot, human fighters began to turn the tables. They used the railguns to destroy Zarnak supply ships in orbit, cutting off critical resources and halting their resupply operations. Once dominant Zarnak fleets were left without reinforcements, crippled by the growing barrage of fire from Earth's ground-based stations. It was clear now. The Zarnak were not prepared for a war of attrition. They had assumed their technological superiority would give them an easy victory, but it was humanity's adaptability and sheer will to survive that had thrown the Zarnak into disarray. Korgax, watching his once proud fleet falter under the relentless barrage of railgun fire, felt a tight knot of panic form in his chest. This wasn't just a setback. This was a turning point. The Zarnak were no longer the predators. They had become the prey. Earth had become a nightmare they couldn't wake from. As the Zarnak began to withdraw their fleets to regroup, it was clear that they were facing something they had never encountered before. An enemy with nothing to lose, an enemy who would fight until the last breath. Humanity had risen from the ashes of their initial defeat, and now they were hunting down their would-be conquerors. And in the heart of their greatest military leader, Korgax knew one thing with terrifying clarity. Earth had awakened, and they were not going to stop until the last Zarnak ship was scattered to the stars. As the Zarnak fleet regrouped in the cold expanse of space, Korgax seethed with fury. His once unshakable confidence had crumbled in the face of humanity's relentless resistance. The Tarnak had sustained heavy damage in the initial assault, its once pristine hull now scared by the deadly power of Earth's railguns. Korgax had watched his ships burn and implode in space, the scattered debris a grim reminder of how quickly things had gone wrong. The fleet was in disarray, its lines scattered and its command structure fractured. This was not the swift, decisive campaign he had envisioned. It had become a drawn-out struggle for survival. Korgax's eyes narrowed as he stared at the holographic display before him, watching as the crippled remnants of his fleet pulled back into the outer reaches of the solar system. He had lost almost a third of his ships, and their resupply lines had been severed by humanity's ever-improving railgun fire. There would be no reinforcements, no supplies. The Zarnak Empire had never faced an enemy like this before. The humans, despite their primitive status, had taken their strongest weapons and turned them against the invaders. Korgax realized that this war was no longer about conquest. It was about survival. On Earth, the unexpected victories continued to pile up. Humanity's military forces, now fully mobilized, were pushing back the invaders, seizing territory and retaking key cities that had been devastated in the early days of the invasion. The railguns, now deployed across every major continent, were bringing the war to the Zarnak's doorstep. No longer were they firing at random targets. They were hunting down individual warships, targeting weak points and crippling Zarnak command structures. With each successful strike, humanity's confidence grew. The railgun strikes weren't just effective. They were devastating. A single shot from one of Earth's railguns could bring down a Zarnak ship the size of a small moon, tearing it apart with such velocity that the ship's shields, once thought impenetrable, crumpled under the impact. The Zarnak began to adapt, but it was too late. Earth had already outpaced them. The technology gap that had once seemed insurmountable was narrowing, and the gap was closing fast. It wasn't just the railguns anymore. Humanity had learned to fight in ways the Zarnak couldn't predict. Ground forces, equipped with railgun-powered infantry rifles, started taking down Zarnak war machines on the surface. Tactical drones, optimized for speed and adaptability, darted through enemy lines, disorienting and overwhelming Zarnak patrols. And in the oceans, submarine forces, equipped with electromagnetic cannons similar to the railguns, struck at Zarnak fleets attempting to regroup. The war was no longer fought just on land or in the air. It was a global conflict, and humanity was taking the fight to every battlefield. In space, the humans made another shocking move. Using remnants of Zarnak technology they had captured in earlier skirmishes, Earth's engineers had reverse-engineered a rudimentary form of FTL communication. While their ships were still far behind in the race to build FTL engines, they could now coordinate strikes across vast distances, providing near-instantaneous targeting information for the railguns and orbital platforms. And that was when the tide truly turned. Earth's first coordinated strike on a Zarnak mothership took place at dawn, the first of its kind. The target was a command ship, the Krenor*, which had escaped the initial barrage and was hiding in the outer reaches of the asteroid belt. Using the newly discovered FTL communication, human forces pinpointed the ship's location with pinpoint accuracy. In mere hours, a series of railgun stations fired in unison, each shot aimed with perfect precision. The first few slugs missed, but the Zarnak underestimated the humans' persistence. The fourth shot struck, tearing through the hull of the Krenor* with explosive force. The ship didn't stand a chance. The explosion sent shockwaves across the system, signaling to the Zarnak that their grip on the solar system was slipping. The Zarnak had come to Earth thinking they were gods, but now they were nothing more than invaders on the run. The humans, with their ingenuity and determination, had found a way to fight, and they were winning. Korgax, watching the destruction of the Krenor* from his flagship, felt the weight of his failure. The humans had no intention of surrendering. They were relentless. He had underestimated them, and now his fleet was scattered, his ships destroyed, and his empire's pride shattered. As he turned away from the holographic display, Korgax knew one thing for certain. This was no longer a war of conquest. It was a war for survival. And the Zarnak were losing. Humanity, against all odds, had begun to take the upper hand. Korgax stood in the command center of the Tarnak*, his fists clenched in frustration as he surveyed the shattered remains of his fleet on the holoscreen. The destruction of the Krenor* had been a blow he hadn't anticipated. Not just the loss of the ship itself, but the psychological impact it had on his forces. The Zarnak were an empire built on dominance, and now their enemies, mere humans, had begun to systematically dismantle everything they had built. The loss of communication with his scattered ships only deepened his growing sense of isolation. Earth's railguns had disrupted their ability to coordinate, and their technology had proven shockingly resilient against the Zarnak's advanced weapons. The humans had outsmarted them, outlasted them, and now they were pushing back with an unrelenting force. Korgax knew something had to change, and soon. But what could they do? His fleet was broken, his forces were demoralized, and reinforcements were out of the question. The Zarnak were facing an insurrection on multiple fronts. The humans had proven that their primitive weapons were capable of annihilating entire fleets, but Korgax knew that the railguns, powerful though they were, would eventually reach their limits. Earth's resources were finite. Soon, their ability to sustain the fight would dwindle, and the Zarnak knew how to exploit such weaknesses. The question was, Could he hold on long enough to destroy humanity's will to fight? In a private chamber aboard the Tarnak *, Korgax was contacted by a senior officer, Zethrax. The transmission was curt, and her voice was cold. "Warlord Korgax, we have a proposal. The humans, they are not invincible." Korgax listened closely, his interest piqued. Zethrax, once an officer of a warship known for its brutal efficiency, had always been one of his most trusted commanders. "We have discovered something," Zethrax continued. "An experimental weapon, a last-ditch measure. It's located in a hidden facility on one of the moons of Jupiter. The technology is Zarnak in origin. If we can access it, we can end this war once and for all." Korgax's pulse quickened. The Zarnak had developed many dangerous weapons in their time, some so catastrophic that even their creators feared their use. "Tell me more." "The weapon is a quantum disruptor," Zethrax explained. "Its purpose is to break down the atomic bonds of matter at a molecular level. It could render Earth's railguns useless, destroy their energy grids, even their cities, all at once. The technology was developed to counter advanced civilizations like the humans, who were starting to close the technological gap. It was deemed too dangerous for regular use. But if we can seize it..." Korgax didn't hesitate. His voice was cold, resolute. "Prepare the fleet. We leave for Jupiter within the hour. This is our last chance." At that moment, Korgax felt a surge of hope. If this weapon existed, and if he could use it, he would have the power to turn the tide of the war in one fell swoop. No more railguns, no more surprise strikes. He would wipe Earth's defenses from existence and leave humanity with no way to fight back. Once that was done, their cities, their industries, their people would be at his mercy. But there was one thing Korgax didn't anticipate. The humans weren't just defending themselves. They were learning. Their ability to adapt and innovate had already outstripped his expectations, and while the Zarnak were retreating to regroup, Earth was gearing up for its own offensive. Colonel Samantha Hale and her team were part of a new, ambitious operation. After the destruction of the Krenor*, they had learned vital information about Zarnak technology and their strategic intentions. One of their scouts had intercepted the transmission about the quantum disruptor, a weapon that, if activated, could erase Earth's defenses. The mission was clear. Find the weapon before the Zarnak could use it, and destroy it. With a team of specialists, Hale's unit had been tasked with infiltrating the moon of Jupiter, where the facility was located. As the Zarnak prepared to make their move, humanity was already on its way to stop them. Hale's heart raced. This would be the most dangerous mission they had ever undertaken. They had no idea what kind of traps or defenses the Zarnak had left behind on the moon. But one thing was certain: their success was Earth's last hope. If they failed, the quantum disruptor would mean the end of everything. The clock was ticking. Korgax was ready to unleash hell on Earth, and Hale was about to make her move against the weapon that could end it all. The final gambit had begun. The battle for survival was about to reach its brutal, devastating climax. The moon of Europa, one of Jupiter's icy satellites, loomed ahead like a silent specter in the vastness of space. For Colonel Samantha Hale and her team, it was both a place of unimaginable danger and the last hope for saving Earth. The Zarnak had chosen it for its isolation, its distance from Earth's defenses, but it was also its greatest vulnerability. If Hale's team could get there first, they could destroy the quantum disruptor before the Zarnak had a chance to unleash it on humanity. The team's mission was clear, but the path to success was shrouded in uncertainty. Europa's surface was covered in frozen plains and deep crevices, and beneath the ice, an alien facility lay hidden, one that contained technology far beyond anything humanity had encountered. The Zarnak had left the facility in place, confident that its remoteness would keep it safe. They were wrong. This would be humanity's last stand. Hale sat in the cramped cockpit of the shuttle, her face grim as she reviewed the data. The mission was a race against time. The Zarnak fleet was on the move, and Korgax had ordered a full assault on Earth once the quantum disruptor was activated. If they didn't reach the facility first, the railguns and every other weapon humanity had developed would be rendered useless. No more surprises, no more hope. The shuttle broke through Europa's atmosphere, the icy winds howling against the hull as the team descended toward the surface. Hale felt a tight knot of anxiety in her chest, but she pushed it aside. Her team trusted her. She couldn't afford to hesitate now. The stakes had never been higher. The shuttle landed in a valley, its exterior vibrating as it touched down on the frozen ground. Outside, the pale light of distant Jupiter cast an eerie glow on the ice fields. The team quickly deployed, moving with military precision. Hale led them, eyes scanning the landscape for signs of Zarnak activity. The last thing they needed was a direct confrontation with the alien forces guarding the facility. They had to move fast. The facility, buried deep beneath the ice, was not far. The team's intel was solid, and they had calculated the most efficient route to avoid any potential Zarnak patrols. But as they trekked across the icy plains, Hale couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. The Zarnak were cunning. If they had underestimated humanity's railguns, they would not make the same mistake twice. There had to be more traps, more defenses waiting for them. As they neared the facility's entrance, Hale's suspicions were confirmed. A low rumble vibrated through the ice beneath their feet, followed by the distinct sound of weapons powering up. The ground trembled as automated Zarnak drones rose from hidden hatches, their sleek, deadly forms glinting in the dim light. The first wave was fast, moving with an unnatural fluidity as they fired precision laser beams at the humans. "Take cover," Hale barked as her team scattered, pulling out their electromagnetic rifles. The drones closed in, but the humans were ready. With a deafening crack, a railgun-powered shot tore through one of the drones, obliterating it in a flash of light. The other drones hesitated, calculating their next move. Hale didn't give them the chance. She charged forward, her rifle raised as she fired, each shot striking with deadly force. Her team followed her lead, taking down drone after drone with brutal efficiency. But the Zarnak were learning fast. More drones emerged from the ice, this time backed by heavily armored walkers, humanoid war machines designed for close combat. Hale's heart pounded as she ducked behind a jagged rock formation, firing her weapon at the approaching walkers. The railgun slugs hit their armor, but the walkers' shields absorbed the brunt of the impact. The humans' weapons were powerful, but not indestructible. If they didn't act quickly, they would be overwhelmed. "Regroup," Hale shouted, signaling her team to fall back. They couldn't afford to engage the walkers head-on. The facility's entrance was just ahead, but they needed to clear the path first. One of the team members, Sergeant Jenkins, had an idea. "I've got an EMP charge," he said, pulling a device from his pack. "If we can get close enough, I can disable their shields." Hale nodded, trusting Jenkins' judgment. The team moved out, firing a barrage of railgun shots to distract the walkers as Jenkins made his way toward them. The walkers advanced, but their movements slowed as the EMP charge sent out a powerful pulse, frying the walkers' shields and disabling their targeting systems. With a synchronized series of shots, Hale's team tore through the remaining drones and walkers, leaving the path to the facility open. They rushed forward, their goal in sight. But as they approached the entrance, a voice crackled through their comms. "This is Earth Command. We've intercepted Zarnak transmissions. The quantum disruptor is active. You have less than 30 minutes before it's deployed. You must move. Now." The urgency was clear. They were running out of time. Hale's eyes narrowed. She had no choice but to push forward. The final battle was about to begin. Inside that facility, the weapon that could destroy humanity's future waited. They had to stop it. There was no turning back. Inside the facility, the walls seemed to hum with an eerie, unnatural energy, a stark contrast to the cold, silent expanse outside. The Zarnak had designed it to be an impenetrable fortress, hidden beneath miles of ice on Europa's surface. But for Colonel Samantha Hale and her team, every moment they spent inside this cold labyrinth only deepened their resolve. The quantum disruptor, a weapon capable of annihilating Earth's entire defense system in a single catastrophic pulse, was mere feet away. 30 minutes, Hale muttered to herself, her breath shallow with the weight of their mission. Every step they took felt like an eternity. The facility's corridors were lined with alien symbols, their meanings lost to humanity. But the one thing they did understand was that the Zarnak would stop at nothing to protect their final weapon. Hale's eyes flicked to her team. Each member a seasoned soldier, each one determined to do whatever it took to stop the Zarnak. The facility was eerily quiet, but the hum of the disruptor's energy was growing louder, more intense. They could feel it vibrating through the walls. Every second mattered. "Team, stay sharp," Hale whispered. "No matter what happens, we get to that core. We destroy the disruptor. We don't leave until it's gone." Sergeant Jenkins led the way, his rifle raised, scanning for any signs of movement. Behind him, Corporal Diaz carried the explosives they would use to disable the disruptor. Lieutenant Vargas, their communications expert, kept their comms clear, listening for any sign of Zarnak forces converging on their position. They had to move fast. There was no telling how much time they had left. The deeper they went, the more oppressive the atmosphere became. It was as though the very walls of the facility were alive, watching, waiting. Suddenly, the silence shattered. A sharp metallic screech echoed down the hall, followed by the unmistakable sound of Zarnak footfalls. The team froze, hearts racing. They were not alone. "Contact!" Diaz shouted as a squad of Zarnak shock troops emerged from a side corridor. Their armored suits gleamed in the low light, their weapons raised and ready. But humanity had learned to fight back. The Zarnak were formidable, but they were not invincible. "Covering fire," Hale barked. The team opened fire in unison, their railgun-powered rifles blasting through the air. The first Zarnak soldier fell, his armor punctured by the sheer force of the electromagnetic slugs. But the Zarnak retaliated quickly, their own weapons unleashing bursts of plasma that scorched the walls. Hale dove behind cover, feeling the heat of the blasts, and fired back with pinpoint accuracy. The firefight raged for several moments, but despite the Zarnak's superior firepower, the humans held their ground. With every shot from their railguns, they tore through the Zarnak's defenses. It was a brutal, bloody dance, each soldier pushing forward, doing whatever it took to create an opening. "Clear," Jenkins yelled as the last Zarnak soldier crumpled to the floor. The team wasted no time, moving forward again, their pace quickening. The disruptor's energy pulse was growing stronger now, almost tangible, the pressure in the air thick with the potential for destruction. They reached the core chamber, a massive cylindrical room at the center of the facility. The quantum disruptor stood at the heart of it, a towering structure that hummed with power, its surface covered in alien symbols and intricate circuitry. The weapon glowed ominously, and Hale could feel its weight, its potential, bearing down on her. "We need to hurry," Hale said, her voice tight. "Jenkins, set the charges. Vargas, keep an eye on the perimeter. Diaz, stay on me." The team went to work in a flurry of motion. Jenkins set the explosives, his hands moving with practiced precision as the countdown to detonation began. Vargas moved to a console, hacking into the facility systems, ensuring that no backup systems would trigger the weapon. Diaz stood guard, eyes scanning the chamber for any further Zarnak reinforcements. Suddenly, the entire facility seemed to shake. A low, rumbling tremor spread through the walls as an alarm blared to life, signaling the weapon's activation. The Zarnak were coming. "We've got company," Vargas shouted. "They're on the way." Hale's heart raced. They didn't have much time. The charges were set, but they needed to buy themselves a few more precious seconds. She motioned to Diaz. "Cover the exits. Jenkins, ready the detonator." The door to the core chamber burst open, and a squad of Zarnak soldiers stormed in. But Hale's team was ready. A brutal firefight erupted in the confined space. The humans, outnumbered but fueled by desperation, fought with everything they had. Railgun shots rang out, slamming into Zarnak armor, forcing them back. The humans held their ground, but the Zarnak were relentless. The air was thick with energy blasts, the hum of the quantum disruptor growing louder. 5 seconds. Jenkins shouted, his finger hovering over the detonator. The Zarnak charged, but it was too late. With a deafening explosion, the charges detonated. The disruptor's core erupted in a brilliant burst of light, sending shockwaves through the facility. The Zarnak screamed in rage and pain as their final weapon was obliterated. And then, silence. Hale's team stood amidst the wreckage, their breaths heavy, hearts pounding. They had done it. They had stopped the quantum disruptor. Earth's last defense had been saved. But the war was far from over. "We've won this round," Hale said, her voice steady. "But the fight's not finished. Not by a long shot." They had struck a devastating blow, but the Zarnak would not surrender. Not yet. The battle for Earth's survival was far from over, and humanity would fight to the very end.